Hi, everyone. All right, I think we'll get started and let some folks trickle in because we do have a good amount of content to cover today. So I want to say welcome again and thank you for joining BE Plus today for the Navigating the Workforce Training Fund program office hour. And so my name's Lily Markle. I'm the Education Director with Built Environment Plus, or BE Plus for short. I also have my colleague Molly, who's our education associate. Say hi,
Hi.
Molly.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Thanks for joining. As I mentioned, today's session is designed as an office hour style conversation. We want to hear from you, questions. We're focused on helping Massachusetts learners and employers understand how these workforce training fund programs can support you and your employee development and organizational growth and general workforce readiness. So we typically work with, as BE Plus, being a mission-driven nonprofit that does a lot of workforce development in addition to community building. Our mission statement slide here, if you're not familiar with what we do, we work with a lot of architecture firms, engineering, consultants, contractors, manufacturers, building owners, operators, nonprofits, workforce development partners in the AEC industry or the built environment specifically, with a focus on sustainability and regenerative design, construction, and operations within the built environment. So we're hoping you'll leave here with a better understanding of the opportunities available and some of the next steps that make sense for you or your organization when it comes to training. And if you're not already connected with us, feel free to take a screenshot of the QR code here, scan the QR code. This is a link to get connected to our education program, specifically the newsletter, our upcoming trainings, all that good stuff, which we'll follow up with in the email as well. So here's where we're headed today. As far as an agenda, we'll start with a quick overview of the Workforce Training Fund program and why it's particularly relevant to organizations working in the built environment. Then we'll compare the two grant programs, the Express and General pathways. We'll walk through eligibility requirements and discuss some of the types of trainings that can be funded through BE Plus. And finally, we'll explain how BE Plus can support employers and learners throughout the process. We'll finish with questions and some next steps. So, a little bit about, before we get into the grants themselves, let's take a step back and talk about why workforce development is such an important topic right now. So across the built environment sector, as you may know, we're seeing rapid change. Organizations are being asked to navigate building decarb, new energy codes, electrification, climate resilience planning, sustainability reporting requirements, emerging technologies. And at the same time, employers are facing workforce shortages, perhaps, succession planning concerns, increased competition for talent, and training is no longer just a nice to have or a professional development benefit. It's becoming a business necessity, and we're here to help through these workforce training fund programs, and they exist to help employers invest in their people while strengthening organizational performance. And speaking of performance, we put together, excuse the blurriness. This is a screenshot of a PDF that we'll share on the website and in the follow-up email as well, but just some metrics that we've gathered in working with firms to upskill their learners and employees. So you can read some of the stats. We've secured over almost $2 million worth of workforce training funds to take our trainings, either through reimbursement or direct free training. And as a result, we've seen businesses grow their revenue, grow their win rates, and increase engagement and satisfaction among their employees. Some other stats are more sustainability specific, project specific. So we've seen increase in daylight modeling and material assessments being performed after taking BE Plus trainings through these grant programs. We've seen 50% increase in LEED accredited professionals at one firm alone. And then a 21% increase in projects conducting life cycle assessments across all discipline areas, not just the sustainability teams, which is pretty exciting. So embedding sustainability in business workflows. Some of the grant recipients we've worked with below and some testimonials. We're super proud of these results here. All right, so let's get into the grant programs. That's why you're all here. A little background. Since 2018, BE Plus has, as I mentioned, directed almost $2 million worth of funds, which has provided free training for, I think it's like over 1,000 individuals and still counting. And so the two grant programs that we facilitate are the Express and the General programs. And we can, and Molly, maybe you can share the workforce training page in the chat so folks can follow along, because this information is on our workforce training page on the BE Plus website. All right, so let's start with the Express program. It's generally the simpler and faster pathway to funding. It's designed around pre-approved courses that we offer in our catalog, and Molly will share that catalog as well momentarily. And it's for organizations looking to send individual employees or a group of employees to existing training programs. So the live training programs that we've scheduled around your schedule, around your preferences and requests. And this can be an excellent option because the administrative burden is generally lower and approvals are often faster than the general program. For many employers, this is a great entry point into the program. Some things that we want to keep in mind are that eligibility-wise, this program, the Express, is for 100 Massachusetts employees or fewer. There's smaller sized grants for individual trainings with no waiting periods between grants. So you can reapply as many times throughout the year until you hit that $15,000 annual cap that resets in January every year. And so this is for public trainings that we've already scheduled. Now let's pivot to the general program. This offers significantly more flexibility. As you can see, a lot more money too. So this pathway is ideal when organizations want a customized training plan, private course delivery for their teams, or larger workforce development initiatives. And this allows employers to design trainings with BE Plus that align directly with their business goals and organizational needs. The application process is more involved, but the funding opportunities are much greater. And BE Plus will walk you through and be the admin alongside you for this grant every step of the way. We become essentially the grant provider in this case. And this is open to firms of all sizes. There's customized curriculum that lasts over a 2-year period. There is a minimum number of attendees required per course, around 5. As I said, these can be private trainings. They don't have to be already scheduled by BE Plus. This is some more information that I mentioned here. Again, this is all on our workforce training page on the BE Plus website under the education dropdown. So I won't go through all of this, but there are some application materials. If you see here in this number 2 step, on the left, there's some compliance documentation that will need to be gathered prior to submitting your application. So something to be aware of, and we're happy to hop on a call and walk you through any of those compliance and eligibility steps at any time. So there have been, which is really exciting, as of April this year, some program updates that really were designed to increase access, improve flexibility, and help employers respond more quickly to the evolving workforce needs. Recently, like late last year, there was a decrease in the amount of funding available. Now we've seen an increase. So some of the changes in policy that have been in effect since April 2026 are that the maximum Express program reimbursement rate for employers, so there's more funding. We're looking at bullet 2 here on the first point here. So the maximum reimbursement rate for employers between 51 and 100 employees in Massachusetts has increased from 50% to 100% reimbursement, up to $3,000 per person per course. So employers with 51 to 100 Massachusetts employees can now receive full reimbursement. This has never been the case, as far as I know, for eligible Express program courses. Going up to the first bullet here for general grants, the maximum general program training grant award has increased now from $125,000 to $200,000 per grant over the 2-year period. So for organizations pursuing customized workforce training programs, the maximum award has increased substantially from $125K to $200K. And all eligible employers may now participate in both express and general programs simultaneously. This has never been the case before, as far as I know. So Massachusetts employers now have more funding, more flexibility, and more ways to invest in their workforce development than ever before. So if you're in a general grant or considering applying for a general grant, you're not limited to just those courses you choose in that 2-year period. You can also apply for funding to take express and public trainings and get up to 100% reimbursement during that 2-year period or beyond. Let's talk eligibility. Who can apply? So because this program is funded by unemployment insurance, many Massachusetts employers are eligible to participate. So these programs are open to for-profit and nonprofit organizations, but you must be paying into the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund through payment into unemployment insurance. You must have a physical location in the state and be current on all state tax and unemployment obligations. So another consideration is that training is eligible only for W-2 employees on a Massachusetts payroll. So independent contractors, such as 1099s, temporary agency workers, and company owners who do not draw a W-2 salary are not eligible. And you're always welcome to email education@builtenvironmentplus.org if you have any questions throughout your process. All right, so what training can be funded? The answer is often broader than many employers expect. So as you know, or as I mentioned, many of BE Plus's educational offerings align with sustainability goals. They also align well with workforce development goals. And we can share a link, as you see in the chat, the link to the course catalog. We might want to share that one again for those who just joined us. And there's also the trainings page that we can share in the chat that has a list of all the live scheduled trainings that BE Plus shares publicly, hosts publicly. So some examples include, as are on the screen, building performance training, building decarbonization, energy code education, sustainability and lead focused learning, and of course, leadership and professional development offerings. Another question we receive frequently is how training can be delivered. And the good news is that the program supports a range of formats. Training may be delivered publicly or privately, as I mentioned. It can be virtual, hybrid, or in person. And this flexibility makes it easier for organizations to design programs that fit operational realities while still meeting program requirements. Now, there are, with that caveat of self-paced learning requirements, this is an important clarification. So the Workforce Training Fund programs allow self-paced or asynchronous or on-demand learning, but it cannot represent the majority of the course. So the current guidance limits asynchronous learning to approximately 30% of the total course time. So 70% of the course must be live instruction. The remaining portion can be asynchronous or on demand. So for employers considering online learning programs, this requirement is worth understanding early in the planning process. If there are courses that are 100% on demand, we can work with you on setting up other training programs through other grant-funded programs that we offer. So please get in touch if that's a question in your mind. So let's get into how BE Plus can support your planning process, your application, your learning curriculum customization. Where can we help? So many organizations know they want to invest in training, but aren't sure where to start. And our role is often to help employers identify workforce priorities, match their needs with training opportunities that exist either through us or other course delivery partners, understand the grant requirements, and connect with subject matter experts in the industry, as well as coordinate actual program delivery. And we can help simplify what sometimes feels like a complicated process. As I mentioned before, BE Plus can act as your grant administrator to shepherd you through the process, especially for those general grants that require a lot of grant reporting and a heavy lift to actually submit the application upfront. And so we breezed through this content. Now, as we're wrapping up here, we'd encourage you to think about your workforce development priorities for the next 12 to 24 months and beyond, asking these questions. What skills does your team or do you need? What organizational challenges could training help address? And what opportunities are emerging that require new capabilities? If you're interested in exploring funding opportunities, we'd be happy to schedule a follow-up conversation and discuss potential training and funding pathways. Our email is shared in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's what I have prepared for today. So I want to thank you all for joining us. And again, state that the recording will be available on our workforce training page on the BE Plus website. And now we'll open the floor for some questions.
Hi, Lily. It's Chrissy Spring from Chapman Construction. Can you hear me okay?
Hi. Yeah. Hi, Chrissy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, so we've used the Express grant quite a bit. We haven't used the general grant yet, although it seems like a great thing to look into. Can the general grant be used for only in-state employees? So we have, a New Hampshire group, and then we have our Massachusetts office. I know under the Express grant, I typically don't put in for New Hampshire employees. But with the general, do they allow that, or is it still only limited to Massachusetts employees?
Technically, it's still only limited to Mass employees. However, we have seen some firms get around that hurdle by only counting in attendance the employees who are based in Mass, and then you're still offering, especially if it's virtual, essentially broadcasting the course to employees in other states. However, you wouldn't account those in your attendance sheets that are required for reporting, which typically isn't an issue. So that's a way. There are ways to get around that hurdle, as
And
long
then
as you're still meeting that minimum five participant per course requirement of those Massachusetts employees.
Perfect. And then just because I don't know as much about this grant, so could you put in for, it sounds like it's rolling, so you could put in for one class, maybe start on a small scale, and then it's whatever, 200,000 max over 2 years. So you could just add classes as they come up, or you want to pursue things. Is that the way it works?
Not quite. That's more of the express path. So that's more of like
Okay.
a rolling application process. The general grant um, is we have to essentially decide on the curriculum plan and the number of employees who will estimated number who will take each course and the number of sessions of each course throughout that 2 year timeline. There
Oh,
are, I think we allow up to 2 change orders throughout that grant. So usually kind of 6 months in and then maybe 18 months in, there will be an opportunity to change up whatever we set at the beginning because we know priorities change, teams change, trends change. So there's definitely room to add flexibility after you submit the initial application.
got it.
Good questions. Thanks, Chrissy. All right. And if there are no other questions, I think we can wrap up here and look out for the follow-up email that we'll send to everyone. If you know someone in the industry who is in need of free or subsidized training, feel free to send them the link to that workforce training page or the email that we'll send you after this recording goes out. That would be very helpful. I think awareness is just the biggest key right now, especially given that so much more budget from the state has gone into this program. We want to spread the word. So any help we can get, we appreciate. So thanks for joining, and
Thank
I
you.
hope you all have a great rest of the day.